All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD or Application and Web Development 1100 C# programming class, I've been doing a series of video presentations mainly based off of the PowerPoint slides for the textbook we're using for the class, which is Murox C# 8th edition. Now, I've been having some problems with a little bit of the stuff in Chapter 16, and that is I want to create a class library for you, and I'm having problems with it. I went back to last summer when I taught the class and looked at a similar lecture, and guess what? I had the same problems there. So I'll get it fixed, but I'm going to jump ahead and go into Chapter 17 now. I may finish the entire book and then go back to 16. I don't know. We'll see how it works. All right, so with that said, I'm going to jump, like I said, into Chapter 17, not 18. 17 on how to work with file I/O. Now, everything that we've done up until this point, literally everything that we've done up until this point in the course, when you think about it, when you run a program, put in input, do some processing, get some output, but as soon as the program ends and you get out of the program, the information that you got when you processed your program, it's gone. There's no persistence. Now, to have something persist, there's two basic ways you can do it. This chapter, Chapter 17, is going to talk about using files, external files, being either a text file or a non-text file. Then starting in Chapter 18, we're going to work with LINQ, but really going 19, 20, 21, and 22, we're going to talk about databases, which are the other way that you can have data persist. Okay, so as we look in here, we've got one applied objective. Develop an app that requires the use of text or binary files. We'll talk about the differences, as it says in the knowledge there. The differences are to distinguish between a text file and a binary file. Describe the use of file stream, stream reader, stream writer, binary reader, and binary writer objects. Describe the two common types of I/O or input-output exceptions. And distinguish between a using statement and a using declaration. All right. So as it says, these are the system input-output classes that you use to work with files. The first one is directory. Now, most of us today, we don't even talk about directories anymore. We talk about folders. So if I come out here and I open up File Explorer as an example, and I go over to my desktop, which is what I've got here. It's kind of messy, but you see it here. We've got files in here, so there's a bunch of text files. I've got a couple database files that hopefully we'll start working on soon, a couple of Word files, and the rest of them are folders. But these folders are actually typically referred to as directories. So when you see directory, you can basically think of folder. Files we've already talked about. And the path basically is kind of how you get to something or where something lives, or I don't know how you want to refer to it. Okay? All right. So here's some of the methods that are used in the directory class. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. All right. Exists. Again, does the directory exist or does the file exist? Create directory if one doesn't exist. Delete if something does exist. Now, notice there's a delete and a delete path recursive. Depending on how you've got this set up, sometimes when you do a straight delete, to go in and delete a directory, all right, the system will expect that the directory is already empty. If you want to delete that directory, everything in it, including possibly other directories, that's when you use that recursive. Now, we did look at something similar to this. Not exactly, but similar to this in an earlier program. So notice string dir. What is this? First of all, notice there's an @ sign at the beginning. If you don't put the @ sign in there, then typically you need two backslashes. But this basically says that what you're going to be using in here is going to be a path to a file. All right. So this says on the C drive, I will have a folder or a directory called C#, and underneath there I'll have another folder or directory called files. All right. And then the next line that's there says, if that directory does not exist, create it. All right. And what do you typically have in directories? Well, a couple things, other directories or files. And you'll notice some of the stuff that's in here is similar to what we saw for the common methods for the directory class. We had exists and create, delete, and delete. And here we have exist, delete, copy, and move. Well, we're working with files now, not with directories. So, does the file exist? Delete the file. Copy the file from the source to the destination. Move the file from the source to the destination. When you copy, you've got two copies, the original and the copy. When you move, you've got just the moved file. All right, so here's one of the file methods. Now, you'll notice that previously we had created this directory. And we said if it didn't exist, make it. Now what we're saying is add to that directory products.txt. If the file exists, delete it. All right. And now notice the next thing that they show here. It says a text file. When you are working with a text file can be read with a text editor. What that means is a text file always, as far as I know, will have a .txt extension. All right, it's a simple file. So if I come in here to Notebook like this, all right, this is something we looked at earlier, okay? So if I come in here and I save this, so I say File, Save As, and I'm just going to call this mvc.txt, and there it is. All right, what does that mean? Well, notice that when I go and open this file up, after I close everything I got open here, but when I come in there, there it is. And I can open it up with a simple text editor like Notepad. All right, so I can open it with Notepad, WordPad. I can open it up with Notepad++, and there's my file. Now, on the other hand, when I take a non-text file, for example, let's grab this right here. How I made a responsive website with HTML and CSS.docx, meaning it's a Word file. If this is not a text file, it's what's referred to as a binary file. So if I try to open this file up in Notepad++, it looks like garbage. You might even be able to figure out some of the stuff that's in there. I'm looking at it, and I don't think I could figure out anything that's in there. But the reason that this is doing this is I am trying to open up a non-text file using a text editor. All right, but if I double click on this, it'll open it up, boom. It opens it up using the Word itself. All right. So that's a text file, and like I said, that's the binary file. And you'll notice you can read most of it in this case. Not all of it, but most of it. So since there's two types of files, text files and non-text files, which we refer to as binary files, all right, when you work with files, with text files, you're going to use a stream reader and a stream writer. We'll talk about what those are. We're going to look at examples in just a bit. All right. On the other hand, when you're working with binary files, it's a binary reader and a binary writer. Now, in both these cases, readers are designed to read files and writers are designed to write things out to files. All right. Now, when you are working with this, notice it says members in the file mode enumeration. Okay. First, you've got append. And typically, if you open up a file in append mode, all right, if you open it up in append mode, usually what happens is there's something called the file pointer that kind of shows where you currently are in the file. And in append mode, what that will do, all right, what that will do is it will take the file pointer and move it to the end of the file because you're appending onto the end of the file. Create normally, and I'd have to double check on this, so let's. So let me go down to here, go down to 17, and I want to double check. I'm pretty sure what I'm about to tell you is right, but I want to make sure it is. So append, as it says, it opens the file if it previously exists and goes to the end of that file. If it doesn't exist, the file is created. And it only works if you're opening up a file like that for write permission. All right, create, that's a dangerous one. It creates a new file. If the file already exists, even if it's millions of characters long, it's overwritten, even if you only write hello in it or something like that. So normally what people do is rather than a create, they do a create new. All right, which says creates a brand new file if it doesn't exist, but if it does, it throws an exception. All right. Open, as it says, opens a file, an existing file, and if it doesn't exist, again, it throws an exception. Open or create opens a file if it exists, and if it doesn't, it creates it. Truncate opens an existing file and truncates it so its size is 0 bytes. So basically, it removes everything. Now, I'm not sure when it removes it, if it's removing it by putting the file pointer at the beginning of the file or not. I don't know. So that's the mode. And then we've got file access. Read, read, write, and write. If something is open for read, it's read only. So you can read from it, but you can't write to it. If you open it up in read write, which is the default, you can read from it and write to it. If you open it up for write, you can write to it, but not read from it. All right? Now, they've also got this file share enumeration, etc. And we're going to look at it in just a minute, okay? And it's common that when you're done working with a file, that you close the stream that you're using to work with it. All right, so I just hit those with you right there. So, as it says here, this creates a file stream object for writing. Notice they give it the entire path here. C drive, C# file under the C drive, C# folder or directory under the C directory or folder, files folder or directory under the C# folder or directory, and then products.txt. So it's a text file that's there. All right, and so that's the path. And then afterwards, we're opening up that file using this path. We're opening it up with create, which means if it exists, open it up and let us write to it. And if it doesn't exist, create it and let us write to it. So that's opening it for writing. Reading looks similar, except notice that now instead of path file mode create file access write, it's path file mode open file access read. All right. And again, what we just saw with open, opens an existing file. If it doesn't exist, it throws an exception. So they could have done an open or create there, but they didn't. Now, these are the exception classes with file IO. Now, I've mentioned this before. You may remember this, you may not. But if you are going to be catching multiple exceptions, you have to put the most specific exceptions first and the most general exceptions at the end. The reason I'm telling you that is IO exception out of the 4 shown here is the most general or generic exception. So that would be the one you would want to list last. Okay. So as it says here, here's code that uses it. And you'll notice we've got these tries, and notice what's last, IO exception. And I believe we've talked about this already. Let's just go through this whole example here. All right. So we're setting up a directory path. We're setting up a file path. All right. We're setting up a file stream. And now we're attempting to open this. All right. As it says, the code that uses it to read and write data from the file. So there'd be other stuff underneath here. If the file wasn't found, throw a file not found exception with just a message box. If the folder or directory was not found, throw a directory not found exception. And if there's any other kind of input-output exception, throw that. Then notice we've got a finally. Finally runs, if all this works, we skip the catches and we go right and do the finally. If the try doesn't work and one of these catches runs, it doesn't matter which one. Let's say it's that one. We do this and we do the finally. So finally is typically used. It's a block. It's try, catch, finally. Finally is optional. If you use it, it's typically used for housekeeping-like operations. Things like closing a file connection. All right, closing a database connection. All right. All right, so we're going to have stream reader and we're going to have stream writer. And we're going to have file reader and file writer. So you'll notice again, stream reader and stream writer, to my knowledge, they're meant to work with text files. All right, so you can write and keep the cursor on the same line. You can write line where you write out a line and then you put the cursor on the beginning of the next line. And then there's close. Now notice it says here common methods. So these are not the only methods that you're going to have in the stream writer class. All right. So what are we doing here? This is called save products. All right. So this is a method. Okay. It's static. And we may or may not have talked about static before, but that means we can just call it. We don't have to create an instance of any class. We can just call it. It doesn't return anything. It's called save products, and it's got a list of product objects that's called products. So we create a stream writer object, all right, that's called text out, and we attempt to create a new file stream, put it in create mode and in write mode. So this is not going to read anything. This is just going to write that information out. And you'll notice it's got a for each in there, and it's got a text out.write, a text out.write, and a text out.write line. This is very similar to what we were working on before in the product maintenance app. The difference is now, rather than writing this information out to a list box, we're writing this information out to a file. And then we close it when we're done. So those were common methods of stream writer. For stream reader, peek is an interesting one. Peek is what's typically referred to as a look ahead. So let's say that I'm reading a file that has a bunch of records in it, a bunch of information about people, first name, last name, address, city, state, zip, etc. When you use peek, it reads the next location, and if there is some data there, okay, it's going to return the data. But if there's no data there, if you've reached the end, it's going to return -1. All right, and that's how it shows basically that you've reached the end of the file. All right, read is designed to read the next bit of information. Read line, the next line of information. Read to end, I believe, takes it wherever the cursor is and reads the rest of the file. And you notice that when we did the stream writer, we had close. When we do the stream reader, we have close. And the reason for that is you should always close your connection when you're done. So here's a similar thing, but rather than writing as we did previously, all right, now we're reading. And you will notice that the routine is called get products. Getters, something that starts with get, is typically going to be a reader. So we're creating this, open or create, that's going to either open an existing file or create it if it doesn't exist. We're opening it with read permission. All right. And we're basically coming in here and we're creating a new list of products. And what we're telling it to do in here is to read through that file. It's doing a split on here because remember there's 3 fields and each, so we've got a code field followed by a pipe sign, followed by a description field, followed by a pipe sign, followed by a price. So that's why we're splitting it here. Once we split it, there should be 3 fields. If there are, we're going to read each one of them. All right. Now, they also come in here and they talk about this. This is fairly new. It's what's known as a using statement. What I'd like to do is jump back again into the book and find in here, I don't know where it'll be, but I'd like to find where they talk about the using statement because they've got a better explanation of what's going on in here than what they show quickly in the PowerPoints. All right. So it says in the previous examples, you saw how to explicitly close a file stream, stream reader, and stream writer objects using the close method. When you call the close method, these objects are closed, and anything associated with the objects are released in memory. If you forgot to close the objects, they're automatically released when the program ends, but that can cause problems. One way, as it says here, one way to prevent this is to use the using statement. All right. When you use the using statement, as it says, this causes objects to be closed and the resources that they are using to be released after the code has been executed. All right. Now that's a using statement. There is also, as mentioned here, a using declaration, which is fairly new, introduced in C# 8.0. As it says, it works similarly to a using statement, but when you use this, the objects that it declares are not closed and the resources are not released until the block that contains the declaration ends. All right. So again, as time marches on, people come up with what they consider to be better ways of doing this stuff. So this is a using statement. You'll notice everything is encapsulated basically inside of here. And here, so everything was in here. Here is a using declaration. We end the declaration and then comes the statement. They're basically 2 different things. This for each is inside of here. This for each is not inside of there. All right. And I believe this is going to be just about the end of the chapter. And as it says here, it's going to end working with a text file. Now, most of the files you typically, if you're doing file I/O, most of the time, you're going to be working with text files. So somebody, some data entry person, has created that information for you. It's in a text file, and you will be working with that information. That's not always the case, but more often than not, that is what's going to be the case. All right, so they go through this example in here, okay? And this is our product maintenance program. So notice what they're doing here. They're using a directory with a path and a separator. The big difference in here is not only are they going to be writing things out on the screen, I believe, but they're also going to be writing those things out, all right, to a file. So let's see if I bring up the one for Chapter 17, all right, because I've had the product maintenance, okay, and we did 12, 13, and 14. There wasn't one for 15. I don't think there's one for 16 either, but let's see if we can bring up the one for 17. All All right, so I'm going to go out to C:\Muroc. That's where I've got mine stored. Here's my C#. I want my 8th edition. There it is, but it should be in here where it's not. There it is on top. All right. So, student download, book apps. 16 did have a product maintenance. Okay. And 17, where we are right now, has this product maintenance binary and text. We're only going to look at the binary one. I'm sorry, the text one, not the binary. So let's bring that up and let's copy that in here. All right. Keep that up if we need it in the next chapter. So I'm going to open this product maintenance text, and I'm going to open this, and I think I'm going to have problems using it. All right. Again, unless I come in and go to project, go down to project maintenance properties, and probably this is 7.0. And if it is, I'm going to change it to 8.0. So 7.0, I'm going to make it 8.0. 7.0, I'm going to make it 8.0. Now this is interesting. It's now showing me version 10. I don't think I saw those before. Okay, well that's interesting. And that should be all of them. As far as I know, I don't see anything else that says 7.0. Yes, I do, right here, target framework. So let's make that 8.0. All right. Okay, so let's close this and let's try to run it. Now, if you notice right now, there's 3 records in here. All right, we've got a code of C#, a code of Java, and a code of ASP MVC. All right, now what I'm going to do, just so you see this, is I'm going to come out onto my C drive. All right, I don't want to use that one. I'm going to go out onto my C drive. There we go. C:\C#\files. And I've got a file there called products.txt. There it is. And that's what's in there. And you'll notice that is this. All right, why am I showing you that? Why should you care? I'll show you why you should care in just a moment. All right, I'm going to close this. And now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add a product. In fact, I'm going to add 2 of them. So the code will be ABC. And we'll just call this new product number 1. And it'll be $50. And we'll save. And there it is. All right, let's add one more. This will be DEF. And it'll be new product number 2. And this will be $99.99. Okay, so you see that's been added. What you may or may not have realized is when I go back into here where we just were, all right, so if I go back to here and I go back to files and I open up this product file, notice it's been changed right now. It is 10 o'clock a.m. And if I open it, there's my 2 new ABC new product number 1, $50. DEF new product number 2, $99. I'm going to close this again. And I'm going to come back into here. And I'm going to delete this one. Yes. And I'm going to delete this one. Yes. Now I'm going to go back and reopen this. And you'll notice that when I reopen it, those 2 are gone. All right. So in this program, we're both showing our input and our output on screen, and we're writing it out to a file. That's what I wanted to get across to you. Okay? All right, and that's the code to do it. I'm not going to go through the code. Now, the difference between a binary reader and a binary reader and a stream reader, or is this binary writer and binary reader work. They work with binary files. All right, those are non-text files. What you do in here is very simple, similar, but you are writing them to a non-text file. All right. Now, we can actually bring that one up because we're just about done here and we're only at 30 minutes. So let's do this. Let's close this. All right. Let's open this product maintenance thing. So this was product maintenance text, and I'm going to change the name of it. I'm going to call this product maintenance -ch16 text. It's not going to hurt anything to put that in like that. And this is product maintenance. Oh, that's where I just was. So let's go back out here, C:\\Muroc. And let's go to here, student download, book apps, chapter 16, and we're going to bring in, I'm sorry, not 16, 17. We're going to bring in the binary file. All right, so let me copy that in. All right, and I'm going to change this again to ch16 binary. All right, let's bring this one up. Now, sometimes you can look at a binary file in a text editor. I don't know if this will be one of those times or not. We're going to look. When I run this program, it should look virtually the same as the last one. All right, the input, output, etc. should look the same. Now, I'm going to come in and I'm going to again do a project, and I'm going to go to my properties. Otherwise, this wouldn't work, of course. And I want to change these from 7 to 8. Again, I think that's all of them. I think there's 3 whenever you do this. All right. So let's look at this, and let's bring up the product main. Hopefully this is going to work, and I'm not going to get errors or things that are going to keep this from working. We'll see, I guess. There it is. Now, I want to open this. And let's try the other one, the new product. We don't want that one. Well, let's do this. What I'm looking for on here is where it's saving everything. So let's see. Let's try running it and see if it runs. We may get errors here. Just warning you. There's nothing in there. Okay. So I'm going to add a product. QRST. Description. This is a new product. And it'll be $33.44. Okay, there it is. Nothing new there. All right, we can add more, but what I'm going to look for is on my C drive. In that C# folder, files, I want to see if I have a new file in there. There it is, product.dat. Was just created. Let's see if we can open that up with a text file. And you'll notice this is a new product, but the rest looks like garbage. All right, so this is our text file here. It is saving it. We know that it's in there. How do we know that it's in there? Because if I stop this run, okay, I'm going to stop the run and I'm going to start the program up again. And you'll notice that when I start it up and when I run, it should persist. That data should be there. That one record, QRST, this is a new product. Now it says you must install. I'm not going to worry about that and play with that stuff now. All right, there's something in there it doesn't like. Okay, so I don't care. But you would find that it is in there. I'm not going to download anything right now. All right, so we're done with this. And I did give you a couple fairly simplistic examples. So as I've been creating this stuff in here, get rid of this. Get rid of that. There we go. Usually you've had two different things in here. All right, you've had the PowerPoints and the payroll. I'm not going to do a payroll app for Chapter 16, so I'm getting rid of that. And this will be Chapter 16 PowerPoints. When we get to Chapter 17, which is what we're going to do next with Link, I'm going to do a Link program for you. But the program that I do, it's not going to be a payroll app. When we jump back into Chapter 18, we may or may not go back to the payroll app. I don't know. But we're now done. So, Chapter 17 PowerPoints will be out shortly. And again, we won't have a payroll app. And we won't have a payroll app for Chapter 18 either. So when I come back, I'm going to be doing the PowerPoints for Chapter 18. I'll see you shortly.